Thank you. I call on the representative of Pakistan.
Thank you, Mr. President. My delegation is exercising its right of reply in response to the statement made by the Indian representative. Denial, deflection, and disinformation continues to define India's diplomacy, which we just witnessed. Mr. President, the myth of terrorism against Pakistan, created and propagated by India, cannot and will not hide the stark reality that people of Pakistan, occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and its own minorities are victims of its state-sponsored terrorism. Today, India itself is the principal perpetrator, sponsor, financer, and abettor of terrorism in the region. India has sponsored and perpetrated terrorism and aggression against all its neighbors by creating terrorist groups and destabilizing and blockading neighbors to do its strategic bidding. In Pakistan, it is funding and supporting terrorist organizations like the TTP and the BLA. Over the last 2 decades, thousands of innocent Pakistanis have lost their lives and have been injured as a result of these Indian-sponsored terrorist attacks. Pakistan has shared irrefutable evidence of Indian involvement in sponsoring and supporting terrorism with the international community. India's National Security Advisor, Mr. Ajit Doval, has publicly admitted supporting and financing of terrorist organizations. The captured Indian spy, Kulbhushan Jadhav, has also confessed to organizing terrorist attacks in Pakistan. Mr. President, since the Hindutva-inspired RSS BJP's government's unilateral and illegal actions on 5 August 2019, termed as final solution, India's 9 lakh occupation forces in occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the densest occupation in history, have escalated their oppression of 8 million Kashmiri men, women, and children in the world's largest open-air prison through extrajudicial killings in fake encounters, enforced disappearances of 15,000 young Kashmiri boys, incarceration of entire Kashmiri leadership, bringing about demographic change by issuing millions of fake domicile certificates to non-Kashmiris, gerrymandering of electoral boundaries for reducing Muslim representation, curbing religious freedom, media, and internet blackout. Last year, Pakistan presented a comprehensive dossier containing concrete evidence of massive human rights violations, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide being perpetrated by Indian occupation forces with impunity. Since 1989, Indian occupation forces have committed over 1 lakh extrajudicial killings, around 1,62,000 cases of arbitrary arrest and torture, over 25,000 pellet gun injuries, 11,250 cases of rape and gang rape, and 8,652 unmarked mass graves, attesting to the genocide which is being committed in the occupied territory. Yet we fear that these discoveries of Indian crimes are but the tip of the iceberg. The High Commissioner for Human Rights has published 2 reports highlighting the grave and systematic human rights violations of international humanitarian law. Calling for accountability, the High Commissioner has recommended the establishment of a commission of inquiry to investigate these atrocity crimes against the Kashmiri people, and has called upon India to grant access to monitor the worsening human rights situation. Several special procedures and mandate holders have also termed the human rights situation in the occupied territory in a, quote, free fall. International media and major human rights organizations have expressed serious concerns about human rights violation in the occupied territory. Professor Gregory Stanton, president of Genocide Watch, warned that, quote, the Indian government's action in Kashmir have been an extreme case of persecution and could have very well led to genocide, unquote. Not surprisingly, Indian authorities have not yet responded to any of these communications. In fact, a witch hunt has been launched against those who dare to report these crimes, including Amnesty International and other human rights organizations, journalists, and human rights defenders. If India has nothing to hide, it must grant access to the occupied territory to human rights mechanism, accept a UN Commission of Inquiry, and agree to implement Security Council resolutions granting right to self-determination to the people of Kashmir. Mr. President, India's reign of terror against its minorities, which are more than the population of majority of the countries of the world, continues unabated. The pandemic of Islamophobia has penetrated into the very foundation of the Indian state, where 200 million defenseless Muslims are lynched by cow vigilantes and killed in pogroms led by RSS brown-shot thugs, where there are public calls of genocide of Muslims being made with official complicity, where the criminal perpetrators of Gujarat and Delhi pogrom enjoy state office and patronage, where the desecration of mosques, including the Babri Mosque and a temple being built in its place, is the state agenda, where rich Muslim culture and heritage is being destroyed and history is being rewritten, where the Citizenship Amendment Act aims to purge India of its Muslim minority, where hijab is banned, where anti-Muslim social media trolls of Corona Jihad rule the internet, where the ruling RSS BJP leaders call Muslims termites and the green virus, where houses and shops of Muslims are being bulldozed, and where derogatory remarks against Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, are being made by top leadership of RSS dispensation as part of the state policy to hurt feelings and sentiments of not only Indian Muslims, but also billions of Muslims across the world. Other minorities in India, including Christians, Sikhs, and Dalits, also face persecution, and churches and gurdwaras are routinely torched. Mr. President, the Indian delegation would do well to reflect upon the deeply troubling trajectory their state is embarked upon, rather than deploying weapons of mass disinformation against Pakistan. Let me emphasize that no quantum of brutality of Indian occupation forces can break the will and courage of the Kashmiris to demand freedom from occupation. Like Martin Luther King's, Kashmiris also have a right and a dream that they shall have freedom one day. I thank you.